Hey guys, welcome back to another video. It's your girl Slee. So I wanted to share something a bit different today. I'm going to be sharing some things that are a bit different than my usual content, which is basically how I got into tech, the lessons around leadership, and just really my interest within the corporate space currently at that specific point in time. So today's video is about how I became a techie without a techie degree. So let's take it back into time. So back in the day, I had no idea what I wanted to do. Like, how many of you knew what you wanted to do when you were in grade 11, 12, or even grade 10? I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I studied, got my matric, and then I still didn't know what to do. So my parents then advised that I should do a management bachelor's degree, which I pursued it. I pursued it, and I did it, and I completed it. Guess what? I still didn't know what to do. Luckily for me, not luckily, but fortunately, I got into a very good graduate program, a program that actually was a mixture of different people from different universities across the country. There was about 11 or 12 of us who were there, and a few who are coming in from Durban, some coming from Eastern Cape, some coming in from Johannesburg. So I always remember one of my career highlights was to be part of that graduate program because it was so organized in terms of just someone who's entry level who just started working, not just the hard skills or technical skills, but also the soft skills, efficacy, leadership. And we also had the opportunity to actually go into another business school to do a management certificate, which was also great. So I then got into a graduate program that took about a year. And then after that, I was placed in the merchandising team. So basically, that's where we do a lot of buying, a lot of procurement. I was accountable for a specific chain of stores where I was making sure that our right stock was in there, right promos, marketing, right terms in terms of products that we're selling there with suppliers, having the right trading terms. So I learned a lot about negotiation. I learned a lot about trading terms. I learned a lot about advertising, working with agencies, newspaper companies, media to really make sure what we say is what customers see on the stores. And I also had an opportunity of learning a lot from the people in the stores. So store operations, leadership teams around how the store is actually run, how much does an average consumer have when they come into the store, and why it's so important to drive certain types of values when they go in there. So I learned a lot, right? But I don't think I had an interest to actually do that for too long. And then I started talking. So another thing that I would advise, if you don't know what you want, start talking to people who are in spaces that you might not necessarily know, but they'll obviously give you an idea. Oh, by the way, I do this. By the way, I do that. I had a conversation with somebody who was in IT, and then I was like, actually, I want to go into IT. And I didn't know at the time this was going to be an opportunity, but I did put myself out there so they can know when an opportunity comes, hit your girl up. And after that few months of the role in procurement or merchandising, I then got another role. I was offered another role from another merchandise executive, and this was a different chain of stores, different from the one that I was working in. And this role was a data analyst role, not your typical data analyst role. I was accountable for not just the reporting, but also the executive summary, putting things into place, making sure the right conversations were leading to the right outcomes versus strategy. I had an opportunity to start a retail branding from scratch with the merchandising team. So we had just acquired a chain of stores, introducing them into the group, into the retail group, and looking at how that investment in terms of mergers actually was built from scratch gave me an opportunity to understand the rationalization behind those decisions. And then obviously being part of the rooms where executive reporting is required for decision making, for right basket sizing, for right conversations with retailers, because now I was in the retail space, and later on I would then move into the other side, which is the supplier space. So 3 months or 4 months into that role, the role in IT opened up. I was like, yay, finally. And also, the role was back in my hometown because at that time, I was actually in Johannesburg. So I was like, I actually want to go home. Okay. I was still a bit like, I don't know what this place is. Like, Joburg is a bit sus. So as soon as the opportunity came, I was offered a role as a business analyst, looking after a different chain of stores, partnering finance. Wait, not different retail. I actually was supporting the group, not just specific stores, but the whole group. And the role was a senior business analyst role, supporting not a senior business analyst, the business analyst role. Eventually, I became a senior business analyst. So I had an opportunity to support finance as a function, support store operations, support the CRM, customer relationship management system. And we were using all types of systems that back then. Great Plains, which is known as Microsoft Dynamics. I was using a Microsoft database system to integrate from the different systems to actually have the CRM system. And then I also played quite a pivotal role in the finance department, like month end, making sure reporting, the right information was run timelessly, systems were off, updates were done. And then I also had the opportunity to also work with the operations team in the stores. So looking at point of sale systems as well. So integrating customers, purchasing, how that goes into our ERP system, and how then we manage the relationships in our CRM. That was my chain of accountability in terms of IT. And part of being a business analyst, you source out a lot of requirements. You try to understand why people do what they do. And because of that type of role, you also are able to challenge why things are done a certain way. So one of the things that actually made me famous in that role is I was able to identify that we were spending so much money with Swell, whether we had good trading terms. Well, we thought we had good trading terms with suppliers, but we actually didn't. And because of the money that actually goes into Swell, we were spending more than what we were actually getting out. So I gave that proposal based on what I was looking at the system, looking at the processes. That recommendation was then given to the leadership team, either to remove the Swell term, suppliers will need to get rid of their own products themselves, or we were to increase our trade terms to supplement for the Swell. So I learned a lot in that role. Fast forward, I got another call from another organization. And this was probably like 5 years into my role as senior business analyst. I needed the change. So I went into a company that I've always wanted to work for. And this was a multinational FMCG company. And they were not calling me for a sales, they were not calling me for an IT role. They were actually calling me for a sales role. I was going to be accountable for looking after Southeast Africa. So Zimbabwe, Zambia, Mozambique, and a little bit of Mauritius as well, and some of the French-speaking markets, which is Cote d'Ivoire. So my role was to assist the sales team in terms of the sales team and the marketing team. So I was the bridge between the sales team and the marketing team, making sure all the plans that we have for our brands were actually coming alive in the stores, making sure that our marketing events, bottom line, and also top line were actually being executed in those different markets, making sure that we were actually looking at market trends to actually ensure that our products were going to drive the right consumer behavior. I got to travel a lot with that role. I got to go to different countries that I've never been, and I actually got I got what they normally say is, was it pushed in the deep end? Yeah, I guess you can say that, because I didn't have like anyone per se who was like biting me. My manager just said, you're accountable for this, go to Zambia, go to Zimbabwe. And I was like, what? So that was like my first time traveling Africa, being a traveler. And I learned a lot from that experience, meeting different people, meeting distributors, obviously meeting the team. And then fast forward to the end of the year within that role, the IT streets were calling me. I had an opportunity to actually meet someone from my previous organization where she said that I must connect with them when I start in this company. And I actually told them, you know what, let me know when these roles come out, you know, because I am an IT person. I don't know what in the world is going on here. I was grateful for the opportunity within the sales team, but I always wanted to go back to IT. So opportunity got it came, and to October of that year I was given an opportunity as a senior business partner for Southeast Africa. So I was accountable for looking after that region in terms of IT capability. So the exciting thing about that role is I was doing things not just as a business analyst, but also just business partnering the business partnering factories, business partnering finance, HR, different functions. And I was also given an opportunity to lead a very transformational program where we were moving from C drive, hard drives, that era when we were taking things from the local drives into the cloud. The company was going through a massive transformation. I was accountable for doing that within Africa. And then I had an opportunity to drive a lot of change management because of those programs, work with management, work with Exco to drive the change, the leadership, top-down push approach. And I learned a lot because I partnered with marketing, I partnered with the functions to make sure that whatever that was specific to a function that we needed to cater for was being addressed. Areas where we couldn't move to C drive, what we were going to do about it, especially like within the fields and engineering and the factories. So I built a lot of relationships in that role. And then fast forward probably 8 months into the role, I was then nominated by the leadership team to be an automation Africa lead. So at this time, we were investing heavily on automation, just like how we're seeing with AI. Automation back then, probably that was 2017, was quite big. And there was a requirement for representation across the different markets. And my name came up to lead the automation agenda. So that role was actually quite exciting. As much as it was a transversal role on top of my existing role, I had an opportunity to then start working on automation, the fourth industrial revolution, work with various consultants, understood why we had to do this, work with management to drive the execution, the drive of automation, the capability, the encouragement, and just the capability aspect of why automation is such a key enabler. And I enjoyed that role because like I mentioned, I sat with a lot of people, whether internally and externally, to actually understand the automation agenda and why we are in this era, and also where we needed to do a lot of legacy decommissioning and upgrading our systems to actually support the agenda, why data was important. And this, I want to remind you again, this is somebody's career who had no idea what they wanted to do. But I was open to doing things that were exciting. Opportunities were given to me. I took them. I didn't say, no, I studied this, I'm going to stick to this, and no. So fast forward probably 1 year, 6 months into my senior business partner role, I was then promoted as an IT manager. Now I was looking after Africa for finance and HR as a department. So any systems, service management systems that got to do with those functions, I was accountable for. And still continuing in my transversal role as automation lead, because we're still pushing that quite hard. So there was a lot of things that were happening across the business in terms of systems rationalization. I really learned a lot. I business partnered the chief HR officer, the chief financial officer, and their teams. I got to travel Africa. So now it's not just Southeast Africa, it's Kenya. It's all these different markets within Africa that I got to travel, which was exciting. And I just learned a lot in terms of growth. And then an opportunity came then for me to be part of a mergers and an acquisition IT project team. We were merging into, we were disinvestment. Okay, there were two mergers and acquisitions I was accountable for. There was one where we were de-investing locally. And there was another one later on at a global level where we were disinvesting. So I was intermediate project manager, and I got to work with colleagues across the world, mainly in the UK and parts of Europe. So I put a pause on my Africa role, and then I was in this role. I was accountable for not just now a regional area, but also now a global area. I learned a lot about data segregation. I learned a lot about what matters when it comes to disinvestment, what tools, what data movement, what does day -1 even mean. I learned so much of those things in that particular scope of a project. And then I came back after like a year. I came back into my role, but right at that time, my role was obviously elevated. I was a digital tech lead now. I was accountable for bigger, more budget, and I had a bigger team. And I just got to work with so many different cool people in the organization. And then AI came around 2024, where we were then driving AI, again nominated to be a lead within AI space. I had an opportunity to go into a course, executive development program course with MIT. I was probably one person in Africa amongst other team members across the globe who actually were enrolled into this course. I was so grateful. This was around 2024. And what I'm basically just trying to say is that your career is not straightforward. You need to be open to trying new things. Your ability to be courageous, your ability to be curious, your ability to actually, go into things that you have no idea that you're good doing. You eventually learn them. One thing I've learned about corporate is that these things are figure outable, if there's such a word. It's not rocket science. There are certain things that obviously need expertise, whether you're in the medical field, you're in the science field, you need to actually know what's a drip, why you put a drip. But sometimes in commerce, as an example, most of these skills, sometimes even in tech, being in tech, you can learn these skills if you are interested. If you want to be in marketing, you can learn these skills. You can have a coach, you can have a buddy. So this is how I broke into tech. This is how I'm still in tech. My career is not very unique. A lot of people have gone through these types of experiences where they actually don't know what to do. They broke out to do these different careers. And that's what I'm trying to encourage someone who's probably trying to figure out, what do I do next? I would suggest that you do what you need to do, study, even if you don't know what you're doing, do a generic degree, but don't box yourself into thinking that you cannot be anything else because you've just done this degree. Ask questions, be curious, network, ask people who are probably later on you'll discover that you want to go into that career. Ask them, how did you get into this career? And you will find that you'll learn a lot just by talking to people and what they do. Because even in my career, I've learned people who studied accounting or who studied industrial psychology. Now they're working in sales because they prefer sales, or some of them are working in marketing because they enjoy marketing. So not everything is straightforward when it comes to life in general. So be open to trying out new things. So this video was just really to encourage someone who's in a dilemma, but also to share with you that the process is not straightforward. It's got a bit of bumps in the road, but it's actually quite fun. Have an awesome day, guys. Bye. Stop recording.